Welcome to First in 2018. I'm Mark Eichman along with Michelle Polston and Shirley Min. Language immersion was an idea devised to keep Delaware kids competitive in a global world. We'll take a look at how schools are doing towards that goal.
The goal of an historically black college was to make sure students of color could get a quality education. A new video shows how far that idea has advanced.
In politics, the push to advance women in elective office will be a big topic in 2018. We'll talk with a member of Mary Ann's list on what's happening in Delaware. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Learning a foreign language has been a staple of high school education in Delaware for decades. But in our first look, Delaware education reporter Chris Barris shows us how elementary students are now learning another language. Chris.
Hi, Mark. For 6 years, bilingual education has been offered to students in kindergarten through 5th grade in dozens of Delaware schools. Today, 1,000 of those kids are learning Chinese. Fifth grader Eve Sabanayagam's favorite color is blue, and she's delighted to tell you that in flawless Chinese.
最喜欢的颜色是蓝色.
Her younger brother Nate thinks red is pretty, and he can say that fluently in Chinese as well.
我喜欢红色，因为红色是漂亮.
The siblings attend Freer Elementary School near Dover, and they participate in an ever-expanding experiment in Delaware elementary schools, Chinese language immersion.
他从哪里来？他从中国来.
Begun 6 years ago with a handful of kindergartners, today 1,000 Delaware K through 5th graders are enrolled. They learn math, science, and other lessons in Mandarin for half of their day, then work in English the other half.
We really looked at the research that was a part of a lot of music research and the idea that you need daily exposure to both languages in order to really gain proficiency in the languages, especially if that language is not your language that you might speak at home. It guarantees that they have at least half of their day immersed in Chinese to give them the language practice and opportunities that they need.
你好.
The immersion program is the brainchild of former Governor Jack Markell.
How does your family help you with your Chinese homework?
The goal is to broaden the education of Delaware students, but also to make them more attractive to colleges, more competitive in the workplace, and help the state attract more employers in the global economy. Markell decided to start language immersion after a company with call centers in Wilmington and Belgium expanded in Belgium instead of here. That's because Belgians speak 3 languages, but Delawareans only 1. So Markell went to Utah to observe their established immersion program. Also on hand were 5 Chinese governors who also watched kindergartners speaking in Mandarin.
They were very impressive. And I knew that these Chinese governors were thinking, well, if we're going to do something, we're going to do something in Utah. And I wanted to put Delaware in that position.
Delaware also has Spanish immersion, with 4,000 kids enrolled. 32 of Delaware's 110 public elementary schools now have immersion programs. 6 offer Chinese, led by Freer, where 200 of the 750 students are enrolled. Walking through Freer, you see Chinese alphabet characters everywhere. Display cases are dedicated to immersion and Chinese culture.
We did a Chinese New Year gala in the years past to celebrate the New Year, where we involve the entire school. We do morning announcements where once a week we highlight the Chinese immersion program students, and they speak in Chinese on the morning announcements, word of the day, phrases, that sort of thing. We have our motto is 1 team, 1 goal, no limits, and that is translated as well.
The kids even Skype with dual language peers in China. But the real magic takes place in classrooms, like Shi Wen Li's at Freer. She only speaks Chinese to her 3rd graders, and they must as well. Li says her work is rewarding but challenging. Students have been taking Chinese for 3 years, but she has to introduce new concepts the kids haven't yet learned in their native tongue.
I taught 3rd grade last year and this year as well, because for math, our first concept is multiplications, and they've never exposure to that concept before. So for me, I'm always have to teach the vocabulary first, otherwise they will not be understanding what I'm saying.
Lee also has to remind herself that the children are, after all, 8 years old.
They're the attention span is very short. So if they are zoned out, they will definitely be lost, because they will not catch up with what I'm saying. So I have to use like a lot of the visual aids and to use all like my enthusiasm, like to get their attention.
So our kindness challenge for today is to ask a classmate if he or she needs help.
After class with Lee, the children are with her English-speaking partner, Lauren Bailey.
We have to be on the same page all the time. I need to know what she's doing over here so I can figure out how I'm going to best support her on the other side. Because sometimes they might not understand the concepts all the way in Chinese. We've been together for 4 years now, so at this point we know each other really well, so we're able to kind of, we can finish each other's sentences sometimes.
Bailey's role is also critical in preparing the kids for statewide proficiency tests.
They need to know what multiplication is in Chinese, but they also need to understand what multiplication is in English, because when they take the state tests, it's in English.
At Downs Elementary in Newark, teacher Pamela Chang is in her first year with immersion. After teaching older kids Chinese as a foreign language for a decade, Chang took the job in part to see if English-speaking kids that young can really learn in Mandarin.
I want to see if it's really possible, but once I come into this program, I was just so amazed at how much students can do. They have no problem using Chinese to learn math, to learn science, and social studies. And they have no problem explaining the concept in the Chinese language. And to me, it's just the most rewarding experience I've ever had. When they go outside of school, they are going to have tremendous opportunities waiting for them.
The program will expand next year into middle school. At Downs, Principal Patricia Prettyman hopes her students stay on their immersion path.
That's always the question. You know, the parents may decide other options, but our hope is that most of them will want to continue with the program.
And she'll keep recruiting new kindergartners, mostly through tours for parents.
They actually watch the children in action. We take them to the kindergarten classrooms. They're blown away when they see within the first couple of months of kindergarten what those little ones are able to do already.
Markel left office in January, but was thrilled to return to Downs with WHYY to witness one of his pet projects in blossom.
I think a lot of people were wondering early on whether this would make any sense. But when you see so many families embrace the opportunity for their kids to speak another language, it's really been gratifying.
The idea that English-speaking kids from age 5 to 10 could do their lessons completely in Mandarin was almost unimaginable until we witnessed it firsthand. When you're in those Chinese classrooms, you can't help but be inspired.
So what happens if a student messes up and uses English in Chinese time? Is there a punishment for that? They can't do the entire class in Chinese, can they?
You'd be amazed, Mark. It didn't happen while we were there. I mean, the kids stayed strictly in Chinese, but the teachers say that if they do, they calmly correct them in Chinese and move on. And you have to remember, these kids started taking Chinese in kindergarten, so by the time they're in second, third grade, they're completely indoctrinated into the program. It's their normal.
So is this purely an elementary school program?
Not at all. It'll evolve as the students move into middle school. At Caesar Rodney District, their 5th graders are now taking it at 2 schools. They'll be able to take Chinese in 6th grade next year. The other districts that have Chinese, Red Clay, Colonial, and Christina, they started after Caesar Rodney did, but they'll follow suit as those kids move into middle school. And the end goal idea is by the time these kids get to high school, they'll have been taking Chinese for 9 years.
Right.
So they hope to be able to have them take advanced placement courses in Chinese to earn college credit and perhaps even work toward a minor in Chinese.
So lots of future opportunities. A really fascinating story. Thanks for bringing that to us, Chris. You can have more of Chris's education stories. Find it at whyy.org/news.
Two separate organizations, the Delaware Humanities Forum and Welfare Foundation, are bringing the history of Delaware State University to life in the documentary A Legacy of Opportunity. People close to the school, including alumni, talk about the transformation of the state's only historically black university, challenges, and where it's headed next in the much anticipated film.
Without Delaware State, I would not be who I am.
Reba Hollingsworth may be in her 90s, but she remembers everything about her time at Delaware State University, even when she attended there for high school.
I was a high school class of 1945. I came here for 11th and 12th grade, and I had to come here because there was no other high school in the state except Howard High School in Wilmington.
The same goes for 99-year-old Susan Brown, who along with Hollingsworth watched a private screening about how the university blossomed into the school it is today.
Blacks did not have any advantages, and I came up when all through the segregation. I know what that's like, and but now it's just, as I say, it's just wonderful that the college has grown like it has, and I'm real proud of it.
Harry Williams, who's in the documentary, is one of 10 presidents who played a key role in the development of DSU.
Delaware State is a unique institution. You know, HBCU is our heritage, is our history, is our legacy, but you know, we are a university, and this university can compete with any university in America. And what I mean by that is that we got the same programs that they have at some of the institutions that are not historically black, but they have quality, and that's what we have here at this institution.
Under Williams' administration, enrollment has increased significantly, and more people have taken notice of the school.
I'm really pleased with the level, the quality of the students in terms of the type of student that's enrolling at Delaware State. We've seen an increase in not only numbers, but we've seen an increase in the quality of the students as it relates to, you know, SAT and GPA, you know, and that's been pretty exciting watching that, because that correlates with improvement in our retention area, improvement in our graduation numbers.
As for the documentary, that came together thanks to a partnership between the Delaware Humanities Forum and Welfare Foundation. After getting a glimpse of the 52-minute film, Gregory Scholl, who was featured in the documentary, could only describe it with 3 words.
Loved it. Beautiful.
The reaction was the same among many of the people in this room and sparked the idea to have incoming students review it for orientation.
I think Dr. Williams made that comment, should be shown to or incorporated in your anytime new students come in orientation. It would be very much helpful, I think, for students to make up their mind and to more or less spread that to other students who may be interested in coming to Delaware State.
DSU was founded in 1891 with a handful of students in one building. For Scholl, that's just too hard to believe.
It's unbelievable, but it's the most beautiful campus, you know, on the East Coast. I think that's my personal opinion. But I mean, when we were coming here, you can put our campus inside of this campus.
The documentary, A Legacy of Opportunity, will premiere next month on DSU's campus for a Black History program, then go on to be a public document. There's definitely plenty to see and learn once the documentary is officially released.
Coming up on First, Dover's Biggs Museum offers 2 exhibits for the price of 1. Check out the best of Delaware through watercolors and Delaware by hand. Up next, a conversation about women in politics and how that will shape the 2018 elections.
Time for First Person, and Megan Wallace is our first person in the new year. She's the co-founder of Marianne's List, a Delaware political action committee. Thank you so much for being here, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
You know, tell me about Marianne's List. When was it formed? What's the vision?
So Marianne's List actually was formed in 2015. So around that time that John Carney was thinking about running for governor and the congressional seat opened up, some friends of mine and I were a little frustrated with the idea that there were no women kind of in the running. And we were sitting around thinking, how could this be? We really need an entity to step forward and create a pipeline of female candidates where we're cultivating them, encouraging them, supporting them, and ultimately getting them to run for office. So in 2015, we filed the paperwork, and we all kind of ended up, putting it on the back burner.
Right.
Involved in a lot of campaigns and primaries ourselves as staffers. And so after Donald Trump won, we were looking to put some positive energy into a new effort, and so we really kind of got organized and got Marianne's List off the ground in a more formal way.
Do you think that women just weren't thinking about it? It wasn't on the radar, or there was some sort of intimidation factor there?
I'm sure, right? And I also think that just generally politics is intimidating for a lot of people, not just women. But at this moment in time, it's still dominated by men, and so it seems maybe even more unreachable. But with the nature of where we're at in time, and with a president like Donald Trump in office, I think women have been able to kind of step forward and see themselves serving, which is good.
Is your PAC partisan, or do you support both
parties? Yeah, so Marianne's List is modeled after Emily's List, which is a national organization that supports Democratic pro-choice female candidates for office. So we support Democratic pro-choice female candidates for office in Delaware. But we did have the opportunity to work with ERA Now to launch a ready-to-run training for female candidates of any sort. So it's nonpartisan training, and it comes out of Rutgers University. So we actually kind of collaborated around that effort and did a multi-week course that we had a great turnout for of women of both parties. So
maybe give us an idea of who are the up-and-coming faces in 2018.
Yeah, so we've seen a number of women step forward across the state. We are looking there. The road ahead is tough. We still have 1 in 5 women in the state legislature, which is nothing to be excited about. So we're excited by a number of candidates. We're actually going to be doing our endorsements, our first round of endorsements in January. Okay. So I won't get into names yet, but we'll be excited to start supporting some people very directly.
And are you preparing for 2020 already, or are you still just kind of looking more?
We're definitely thinking, so just kind of where because we launched kind of mid-cycle almost this round, we're trying to figure out how we're supporting candidates this time around. But when it comes to 2020, where we have an opportunity to really cultivate people from the outset, our support will look different. So right now, we're going to do an endorsement process, but next time around, we'll really be getting women really be doing more recruitment and getting women to step forward.
Okay, and that support, what does that look like specifically? Is it like this is how you prepare them for interviews, or you prepare them for issues that might come up?
So, well, I think it looks different for every candidate. I think we want to be an entity that builds a network around candidates. Part of the challenge for women is access to resources. So early access, the whole point of Emily's List as a national organization is early access to resources. So we think if we can surround women candidates with a network of support for their candidacy, we are able to reach them with more capacity than just a small organization is able to do. So it's really access to our network that we're hoping is going to be most valuable to the women that step forward to serve.
So then do you work directly then with the state Democratic Party?
No, we have no affiliation with the Democratic Party. Okay. We're our own entity, our own political action committee, our own 501c4. Okay. So we have our, we stand alone.
So the Me Too movement, the hashtag Me Too movement, obviously is exposed this culture of misogyny and in Hollywood and also in our nation's capital. Right. And part of how we got here is just this general overall lack of representation, female and otherwise. Right. And that has contributed to it. Are you finding now that, I don't know whether it's because of the movement, but you find more women are willing to step up or are starting to find their voice?
What seems to be new to me is the nature of the reporting around it. It's I don't think any woman is surprised by this sort of movement towards I guess what I would say is nobody's surprised that women are experiencing this sort of thing. At least if you ask women. All my friends have been saying Me Too for years. It's just been elevated to a national dialogue, which I think is useful.
Are you finding women are stepping up more in Delaware and then on the national stage?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess we are stepping forward and trying to have a voice, and I think people are listening, which is useful. And I hope that we take that Me Too movement, and it's not just something that we stand around and talk about, but it's something that we actually move toward action on. There was that story that came out yesterday about the women in Hollywood organizing with the National Women's Law Center to actually put some meat on the bones in terms of policy change, as a result of the Me Too movement. So that's the sort of thing that I'm hoping comes out of that.
And maybe develop some strong female leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Megan Wallace, co-founder and board chair of Marianne's List, thank you so much for being here. You can find more information at marianneslist.org.
Last month, Republicans in Washington got their tax bill through, but it's what was left unfunded that is the subject of this week's Torno Spin. Rob Torno joins us to talk about his latest cartoon focused on the Children's Health Insurance Program, better known as CHIP. And in this week's cartoon, a doctor with a questionable bedside manner offering not so reassuring comment, telling a sick kid, think of what the wait time for healthcare in Canada is. Maybe that will make you feel better for not having your CHIP coverage. Take us through.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're at the point now where it's like we're fighting to give kids health care, but that's where we are. This is a bipartisan issue. People support this on both sides of the aisle, and that we can't get some sort of consistency for these kids. I mean, it's just troubling that our process has come to this.
And there's been a temporary funding measure, that not enough, you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it'll run out in the next couple of weeks or starts to run out. You know, you have as many as like 9,000, 8,500 kids in Delaware. Across the country, you have millions. And these aren't kids, you know, who are poor or who are rich. These are just, you know, middle-class families that just need this help. And the fact that we can't guarantee our kids health care universally is a problem, and it shows why we really need to tackle this issue more stridently.
And it's, I guess, disappointing to see sort of it's kind of a shell game going on.
I mean, you have like nuclear war with, you know, North Korea, you have everything else, and this just becomes one of these other issues that has sort of fallen by the wayside because of this administration that can't seem to get priorities straight.
All right, he is Rob Torno. Read more of his work on WHYY.org/news. Find him on Twitter @RobTorno.
Delaware has a really amazing art scene, as you've seen here on First every week. This week, the First Experience team is at the Biggs Museum in Dover, where there is a double exhibit showcasing the best of two of Delaware's arts organizations, Delaware by Hand and the Delaware Watercolor Society. The exhibit is truly the best of the best from these two groups. This dual exhibit at the Biggs Museum runs through January 21st, and you can get more information about the Delaware Watercolor Society by visiting them at the web at delawarewatercolorsociety.org. And for information on Delaware by Hand or the Biggs Museum, go to the museum's website at biggsmuseum.org.
The first weekend of each month is when we bring in our content partner, Delaware Today magazine. And Larry Nagengast joins us now to talk about his cover story on school choice in Delaware. Hi, Larry.
Hi,
Happy
glad
New
to
Year.
be here. Happy New Year to you, too.
Let's start by talking about what is choicing in Delaware And then when did it start?
Okay, well, choice has been around for 20 plus years now. And essentially what the choice program does is that it allows parents, students to apply to virtually any public school in the state. You're not guaranteed to be accepted to that school, but you can apply and choose the public school or the charter school that you would like to attend, and then there's a process. Essentially, it can become a lottery if there are more applicants than there are seats available, and you can go wherever you choose. More than 1/4 of the public school students in the state use the choice program, either for attending a traditional public school or a charter school.
And so all of it started because parents were generally not happy with the schools in their feeder.
Part of this in terms of starting choice was, well, how do we move the kids who had been assigned to certain schools as in the desegregation era into other schools, and what are the options for getting them into different buildings without forcing them in a different sense to attend particular schools.
I mean, has it made the schools better? Have you found that it's made them better? Because I know that they now, with so many options, they have to be competitive for some of these students.
Well, I can't say that choice has made the schools better. Certainly it has given parents and families more options to the extent that schools or school districts differentiate. If middle schools or high schools have slightly different programs or points of emphasis or slightly different curriculum, it gives parents more of an option there in deciding which schools their child ought to attend.
It seems like, the parents, it's a lot of work for parents to go through the choice process.
Yes.
And so it almost seems like if you are a child who has parents with less resources or don't have the time to commit to it, that might seem like a barrier.
I've certainly, any number of the people that I spoke to pointed that out to me, that it can be difficult. There's a lot of work that goes into choosing the right school for your child. I don't want to scare you and say that it's really difficult, but in some respects it's like applying to college. You've got to go and visit the schools, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals, even talk to your child's current teacher and ask that teacher if he or she knows a particular school that might be a good one for your child to attend.
Get organized for sure. Thanks so much for your time, Larry. You can read Larry's story in this month's issue of Delaware Today magazine on newsstands now. You can also read more at DelawareToday.com.
Next week on First, we celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. Monday the 15th would have been his 89th birthday. We visit a Wilmington minister who is still inspired by the civil rights leader 50 years after his death.
We'll have that story and a lot more. We thank you for watching First this week. For Chris Barris, Shirley Min, and Mark Eichman, I'm Nichelle Polston. Have a great week.
我的妈妈是从台湾来的。我的爸爸从密歇根州。